So, David Bonilla, is there any relation to Bobby Bonilla?
No, and I get that all the time, and
Really?
I wish it was true because, man, Bobby Bonilla Day, I would love to take advantage of that, man.
Dude,
That contract was insane,
I hope one day I can secure my own Bobby Bonilla type of contract.
Yeah.
His agent was a genius.
Yeah, it's like every July 16th or something like that. It was like 20 years, right? So when was that?
20 years since his last playing days. I don't know. There's plenty of articles on it, and I just wondered if you ever hit him up like, hey, dude,
hey,
I'm kind of like a distant cousin.
Yeah.
Ish.
I'm a nephew-ish, but I do have a Dodgers jersey because he played for the Dodgers, and that's where he got the deal,
Yeah.
He was number 25, and so I didn't get a 25. I got my favorite number, which is 43, because they add up to 7, lucky number 7. So it's kind of little, I don't know, that's why I picked it, I guess. But that's, I have a Dodgers jersey with the number 43, and it says Bonilla, and people are like, Bobby Bonilla? I'm like, no, he was number 25, but I appreciate you remembering that, though. And so whenever I tell people, I'm like, David Bonilla, like Bobby Bonilla. And then sports people get it. Everybody else is like, who's Bobby Bonilla?
Yeah. I mean, 25, 2 and 5 also equals 7.
Hey, look at that connection. Look at that connection.
Just
see, look. Yeah, I've honestly never thought about that until you just said that. That's awesome. Yeah.
So you didn't have to change the number.
Either way, we're in the same game. Yeah,
you'd be good. Okay, so you were recommended for this interview by former guest and CEO of Pop Smoke Media, Dan Sharp.
Yeah,
great. Yeah. How did you guys link up?
He found me through a Facebook group for Drinking Bros. So veterans hopefully are familiar with that group. Yeah. And I've met those guys a couple times. I think Jared had a birthday, and I met him at the American Legion here in Hollywood, and just briefly, and took pictures with them, obviously. And I posted about a project that I did for Netflix called Blood of Zeus, and it's like a very Castlevania-ish style animated series, and I just was trying to get some exposure because it's the first time I kind of did that type of animation, and I wanted to see if my work had translated well. So I just put a message, hey, I worked on this. Let me know what you guys think. And I mean, that thing shot through the roof. It was like number 1 for a few weeks. And
really?
It just got renewed again for 2 more seasons. So Netflix immediately bought 2 more seasons.
Wow.
And so we'll be working on that. And it's really cool because it's like the Greek mythology, but stories that you haven't really heard, or twists on things that you thought you knew, and so kind of some untold tales of Greek stories, mythology kind of stuff.
What a cool project! Is it anime, like Japanese anime?
Yeah, it's in that fashion. Yeah, and if you've ever seen Castlevania, or fans of Castlevania that is on Netflix right now, will know exactly what I'm talking about. And it looks great, and it's gory, and it's vicious. And what's crazy is my fiance's friend is an actor in that, and I didn't know. And I go, I thought I heard a voice, because I hear voices all the time. Not that I'm crazy, but when I'm at work, I hear actors' voices, and you can kind
pick up on them.
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's totally this guy. That's totally this guy, or this woman, and I heard the voice, and I'm like, I know that name. And his name is I can't remember his last name, but he's just one of the actors. And I was like, whoa, small world. And that happens very often, where I'm working on a project and I either have met them, or I know them, or somebody I know knows them. And then, then I'm talking about them on a podcast.
Very cool. Very cool. So before we get into post-career military careers, pun definitely intended. We go on the show. We go way back. You grew up in California, and you were acted before you joined the service, right?
Yeah. California boy, dude.
What did you act in?
So I did a bunch of like background acting. So people are familiar with extras, like just being in the background, pantomiming, pretending you're drinking, and it's talking and shaking your head kind of thing. I did that. I was in movies like Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones. I did a Whitney Houston video, which is my claim to fame.
That's cool.
Or I got to ride a bike for a day, and they paid me like $700 as a kid. I was like 13 or 14, and they're like, "Do you know how to ride a bike?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm a kid. Obviously, I know how to ride a bike." And
what a dumb question.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Okay, just ride around Paramount, and we'll film you." And then they just had me stop at these sandbags, and then they put makeup on me and stuff. I mean, I filmed for like 3 hours, and I got to eat from the food truck, and I got to meet all the Soul Train dancers at the time. So I don't know if anybody remembers Soul Train, but I got to meet all the dancers that were on the show. And then Whitney Houston was there, and it was like, just insane.
That's cool.
Just really, really crazy.
That was probably at the height of her career, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, it was for a soundtrack called The Preacher's Wife. I think that she did that with Denzel. Yeah. And she was really into her acting career at the time. And at the same time, I was a regular extra on the show Sister Sister with Tia and Tamara Mowry. And I'd run into them just during, and it was a live filming. So it was kind of interesting because then you hear people kind of talking and like people looking at you like, oh yeah, what's he going to say? Or, just kind of guessing. And then they have somebody that warms up the crowd and stuff like that. So that was fun to kind of go through that process. And I just did a bunch of different movies. Like I did a movie with Dennis Leary, and there's a guy from O'Connor, Carol O'Connor, the guy from not The Honeymooners, that All in the Family.
Okay.
That guy.
Oh.
Yeah. And he hated kids. And that dude just was like, get kids away from me. I don't want kids around me. And Dennis Leary was really cool. And it was a movie called Second Civil War for HBO. Okay. And then I just did a bunch of small projects, and my mom had friends that were filmmakers and stuff. So I just jumped into whatever,
It sounds like it's a lot of stuff where you got your SAG card and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I avoided that at all costs because I was like, I do not want to pay dues, especially for a 13, 14-year-old kid. I'm like, dues? I'm like, no, that's not happening.
Any interest in acting again?
Yes, in a way. I would probably do voice acting. And so I started working with a voice coach, and then they just got busy. So then, and I got busy, and it's kind of like, fall apart. But like any relationship, if you're not in it, then you're out, So
well, you only have so much bandwidth, and so many things that you can dedicate to at one point. Well,
and she was a working actress and stuff like that, and so I just could not get it going. But I do want to pursue that again. I really love. I don't like being the star in the sense where I'm a face, I can do radio, I can do podcasts, I can do all these things. Just don't look at me.
Hey, this podcast is now video. So I'm sorry, dude, you screwed on this one.
Exactly. Don't tell me that because it's going to get in my head, But
you seem to be well adjusted. No child star syndrome that I've seen so far.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I need my coffee.
When did you know that military service was going to be the next step in your life?
Oof. It was weird. I was one of those weird kids that, played with G.I. Joes and stuff like that. And so I think it was always in my head, that I'm like, oh, I really like this military thing. I liked, playing with toy guns. It just didn't click until I was in high school, and I had a recruiter click it for me. So I was, I think it was 16, and obviously in high school sports, because that's where they get you. And my recruiter just bought me lunch. He just said, his name was Sergeant Chaidez, and he's like, hey, do you want to go out for lunch, man? I'm like, sure, free food. Totally. And I was working at the time, and I had a job, and I was like, but if somebody's going to buy you free lunch, why not? Like, I'll let this sucker take me out for lunch, And we just got to talking, and the things he said made sense. And then I became like just in it. Like I was just so entrenched in my mind. I was like, dude, like this is checking all the boxes. Like, guidance, discipline, travel, shooting guns, dressing up really nice, all the things that a young kid that doesn't know what he wants or needs kind of goes, oh, you're answering everything for me. You got it all. Oh, you want to play baseball? We have a baseball team. Oh, you want to do football? We have a football team. All that kind of stuff. And you can run track for us. So I was sold. I was sold right away. And he was not only a recruiter, but he was also a friend. Like my mom was very worried about me, so he, put my mom's mind at ease. And I got in a car accident. He helped me take care of that kind of stuff.
Oh wow.
Hey, how's everything going with your friends, kind of thing. And we keep in touch through Facebook now. I found him, years later, which is the great thing about social media. You can find people whether you like it or not from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So that was a very pleasant surprise and a great connection to have again.
I'm the same way with my recruiter. Sergeant Bell was almost like another brother to me.
Yeah.
He was really really close, really helped me through a lot of stuff. And I think I was his last recruit before he got out of the Marine Corps.
Oh wow.
So yeah, or one of his last ones. But yeah, him and I still talk every once in a while on Facebook, and yeah, I was always appreciate what he did for me and joining the service.
Oh, I definitely needed it, man. I grew up in a neighborhood called El Monte, the mountain, and people here call it El Monte, but whenever I say it, I'm like, no, I am from there. I'm going to say El Monte.
Okay.
So El Monte is rough, man. Like it's a rough part of town. It's probably gotten better. My brother still lives there, but when I was growing up, I used to get jumped all the time. I was super scrawny as well. Like I'm 180 right now, 175. When I went into the Marine Corps, I was 115.
Oh wow, you were scrawnier than me. I was 140.
I was a toothpick, dude. So
yeah,
I was struggling in life before that because I was probably even less. I weighed less, and so I used to get beat up a lot. They call it getting jumped, and so I didn't know how to fight. My brothers knew how to fight and kind of protect me. I have two older brothers, and so like one is with my dad got remarried when I was younger, and so I have a stepbrother, but he's still my brother. I don't really call him my stepbrother. And then I have my brother, my natural brother, that's a year older than me. So my brother Eric, who's a year older than me, was always with me, and when he wasn't, I was getting beat up basically. So yeah, I needed it, man. Like the Marine Corps saved my life in many ways, where it taught me how to stand up for myself, how to kind of have that bravado, kind of, I guess,
confidence. That
confidence. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, I'm terrible with words, by the way.
No,
so
you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
Did the Marine Corps, when you told people that you were joining the Marine Corps, were they like, yeah, right?
Oh, I mean, obviously, I'm like, you Marine Corps? No. And the other thing was, I was a major quitter, man. Like I was so fickle with things. Like, I did baseball when I was a kid, and I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I quit. Joining clubs. I'm like, hey, yeah, here's French club. Yeah, I'm over it in a week or something, And so I saw that and I hated that. Like it really, really, really got to me where I was like, I'm done quitting. Like I can't quit again. And so making that commitment to the Marine Corps, just as much as they needed me, I needed them. And I was like, yeah, like there's no going back. And people were like, yeah, dude, we'll see you in like a month and you'll be back, and giving us some excuse of why you couldn't make it and stuff like that. And I people would tell me to my face, and it's like kind of stung, but it also felt better when I came back and I was like, yeah, sucker, look what I did, Yeah.
Give them the one finger salute a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. It made it much more rewarding for me to say, hey, I did it, I'm doing it. And then even now say in the past that I did it and I did it well. And, people asking me, like their kids go in and they're like, hey, can you give my kids some advice? And I always tell them, like, where are you going? What branch are you doing? Study up. How's your ASVAB score? what are you looking to do? What do you want to do in the future? What do you think? And if you don't have a plan, that's totally cool. But if you're going to do something, do it to the fullest, do it right, and then move on if that's not your thing, but at least master that one thing, be really good at that. And then they might even give you the option, like, dude, you're too good for this job, like move somewhere else. And that happens a lot, like my buddy that just retired, he had like 4 jobs because he would excel. And then they're like, oh yeah, dude, you should go for this slot. This is awesome. And so then he did like air traffic controls when he got out. And he was a buddy that went a week before I did from high school. Yeah, Joseph Zuniga. And yeah, pretty awesome that he did the whole length. And I was like, dude,
hats off to the ones that did a full career. Were you how weird is it to see guys that retired that now. You were like, now that like, back then you knew them as like PFC or Lance Corporal.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. And I'm like, you were in charge of people, dude. I'm like, people listen to you.
I remember you.
My buddy that he did tanks, and not to say that he's a bad Marine or anything, but like in boot camp, just going through boot camp with him. And I'm like, dude, like just so crazy to see that transformation and that progression in his career. And it's awesome. He has a family now. And yeah, just amazing. I mean, it's funny. And then, you kind of hold back sometimes. You're like, oh, that guy used to do not this guy, but like this dude used to cry or whatever the case was,
I'm kidding.
I'm like, he was terrible at drill, stuff like that,
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So what year did you go in?
I went, I signed up in 98. Yeah. 98. And then I went in 99.
Okay, so you deployed in 03, so that must have been how many enlistments did you do?
So I did 1. So I went in as a reservist. So full disclosure, I'm a reservist. Yes, go ahead and yell at your podcast speaker.
But to be a veteran, I guess the classical sense, there's a way they classify it in the VA, but I know part of it is being active duty and being activated and deploying and things like that. And you did deploy.
Yeah.
You deployed in 03. Were you part of the invasion in OIF-1?
Yeah. So I was there at the end of January. We got activated. We got the call in December, and then everything happened really quick, maybe 2-3 weeks, and we were out. It was like the end of December. They're like, hey, we're probably going to go January. We got the order. And then we were out by like end of January, staged in Kuwait. I did not go with the first guys through the line. I was actually at the front gate at a place called Camp Commando in Kuwait. And we got attacked, which was so crazy the first day. There was a seersucker missile that hit the front gate, and I was literally cleaning my rifle when it went off. Whoa. I could see it cross the sky, angled down, and I'm like, oh, that plane is flying very, very low. And I'm like, and that doesn't sound like a plane. And as soon as I'm like thinking that it hits, the warhead didn't go off, luckily, because it was like 200 yards from the front gate. I was on one side of the concrete barrier. The missile hits on the other side. I blacked out. I literally blacked out. And, they've done scans of me and they're like, oh yeah, it looks like some kind of trauma happened. And I think it's that, but I blacked out. I woke up running to a bunker, the sand bunker, with my weapon together. I had my mop gear on. I had my weapon. My body just went into full train auto. Mode. Yeah. Train auto, whatever you want to call it. RoboCop just happened. Or Transformer, sorry. And yeah. And from then I was like, okay, this is real. This is a real deal. Cause they told us that morning, they're like, hey, we crossed the line. You guys are probably going a week or in a few days. They're like, just be vigilant, and boom. I mean, from the get-go. Again, luckily the warhead didn't go off. I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be, further disabled and other things, but.
Did you see the warhead hit the ground? I
didn't know. It crossed my sight of
line of sight.
Line of sight.
Yeah.
and the wall was there. So there's a concrete barrier, those things that they just drop,
But it turned out to be a UXO.
and then boom.
Wow.
It was like a beat, and then I looked, and I can see all the tents mushroom up just from the impact of that thing, man.
Oh yeah.
That was insane.
Crazy.
I mean, no movie has ever replicated that in my sense, in my eyes, to give me that feeling again.
Yeah.
And dude, I was terrified, man. I was from that point on, I was like, okay, again, this is real.
Yeah.
They're here. They can get to us, okay, now it's on. Like, I almost got mad at that point, I'm like,
right.
I'm like, really? Like,
yeah,
really?
you usually when you see an UXO in films, it's like a mortar that like lands next to a guy, and it's like a little tiny thing. What you're talking about is like a missile or a rocket that's huge. It's going to be incredible.
I even had to like look it up in the newspaper. I'm like, did that really happen? And I'm like, yep, that really happened. And just insane that I was there. And funny story is, I actually served at the same post as a guy I went to boot camp with. This guy named Aaron Murphy. And I didn't know until maybe halfway through that deployment, and we came back, and I was at the gate, and I'm like, I know this guy. And it was just crazy. Ran into him there, and then he ran into him at a grocery store later on, like miles away from where I'm at right now, like 50 miles away, and just connected that way. And I'm like, dude, I keep running into you, man. And so, we'll always be brothers because of the Marine Corps, but after was like, dude, like, we were there together kind of thing, so.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So you were with 3rd Anglico. Our previous guest, Aaron Quinones, was also with an Anglico unit. If you ever get a chance, and if you're listening to this, go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, he was with First. Yeah, First.
Yeah. Oh, you listened to that episode?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. And he knows some of the guys that I was with because we interchanged and we were just kind of doing stuff. So, yeah. But I mean, his story was really intense. That's a great episode.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Homeless before and after the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Pretty intense episode. So if you get a chance, check that out. If you're listening to this, check it out in the archives. You were logistics. The invasion, was one hell of a logistical operation itself from a logistical point of view, looking at that convoy to Baghdad. What was that from your point of view, from a logistical
beautiful sight? Yes. We're doing our jobs finally. This is not training,
Yeah.
But from a logistical standpoint, dude, we just didn't have enough stuff for our guys at the time. I don't think people, it's kind of, it was all new to us, for some of us that were in the Gulf War, it was not new to them, but for me and my era of Marines, it was all new to us, and so we're like, dude, we need batteries, we need these things. Where are they?
Fuel, ammo. Just to get into the fuel to the front of the convoy, it's like, how do you
batteries were like gold. And, at one point, like, there was like a toilet paper shortage at one time for like a few days. And then we're like, well, we're in the desert, so make do. I felt like we were in prison sometimes. I'm like, dude, we are making we're just doing our own thing and just kind of making stuff out of other things and making rifles out of, like rocks and whatever we can find in the vehicles. But, all kidding aside, it was rough logistically, but it was cool to see all those things actually taking form and actually happening. I had a ton of pictures, but I lost them all in a fire.
Ooh.
We were leaving. We were already disembarking or getting ready to embark back home, and something got fire in our camp, and we lost everything. So I lost a ton of pictures, a ton of gear that personal gear that I bought. People were basically ramping up to go home.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our trinkets and a lot of our photos are gone. It's basically whatever I had sent home at the time. And it was like that day that I was like, I can send stuff home or I can sleep in. And I was like, just sleep in. And I was like, dude, I wish I made the other choice. Like, I would have had 10 rolls of film of, really cool stuff, Babylon and Basra and stuff like that, and just gone.
Yeah. So I'm sure whenever you see something, you're like, it's like gold. It's like gold to you because you don't have anything like that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I have a few pictures and stuff, but and from pieced together from what other people did, um, there was another instance where we got left behind. My buddy and we were in Iraq at the time, and we were protecting contractors in the oil fields of Ramallah. And the contractors were like, "Hey, they said the pickup point is here." We're like, "No, the pickup point is not here. We know. We had a meeting at the beginning of the day. So we do before we go out." And the pickup point was where we picked up. It's the drop off point too. So they're like, "Well, we're dropping you off here." And it was one Marine per 3 contractor. So I'm with these guys, and they drop me off, and I'm like, "Dude, like, this is pretty effed up. This is not right. I'm
like
gonna
just dropped
die."
you off by
Drop
yourself?
me off in Iraq, like
by yourself.
By myself. Bro. By myself. And 20, 30 minutes go by, and I climbed the highest point. I hid. I hear something. I hear a vehicle, and I run to it. It's my buddy. They did the same thing to him. So now it's 2 Marines by themselves. So I go, "Hey, we got to get up to this, what they call a GOSP, gas and oil separation plant." It's basically where they would store, you've probably seen them, like just wherever they store oil, big kind of drum looking lugs. Yeah. So we ran up to the top, vantage point, nothing around us. We could see the vehicle in the distance driving away. And I'm like, "Dude, what do we do?" And
no comms, no nothing.
No communications. They had satellite phones, no radios. Hello, logistics. And there just wasn't enough radios to go around. And we were doing this offbeat security that they had asked us to do. So we ended up just hunkering down for a while. We went scouting around. We ended up running into a communications battalion from New York. And they just happened to be driving through, and they're like, "Dude, like, what's up?" And so we told them what was going on. They were with some EOD guys. Long story short, we ended up having a barbecue, one of the best nights of my life.
But you're kind of like,
it was insane. I'm like, we went from almost dying and thinking that we weren't going to make it to we're having a barbecue. We're eating a goat that we bought for like $5 and from a guy. And the EOD guys, they put explosives on a tree and exploded it to get firewood, and then started showing us videos of all their EOD happenings, like how they were like getting all the ammunitions that they found. They put them in a pit and then they blow them up. They're like, "Dude, check this video out." 6 hours ago, I thought I was gonna die, dude. It's just so crazy. And my buddy Stephen Hill, he went to officer side later on, and he's out now. But he was with me, and I'm like, "Dude, like," and it's weird because I think that affected me as well. Like, it's like it's kind of like what do they call that? Like, I had like daddy issues because they left me, dude. Like, they left me,
Did anybody else get lost, like, for good? Like,
no. You
guys found everybody.
Yeah, no, everybody was good. Our deployment, we had a few casualties, but no deaths.
That's good.
And so that was incredible.
While you were in, give me either a best friend or your greatest mentor.
Chesty Puller. No, that's just a knee-jerk reaction to anytime anybody asks me that. But so I would probably say like 2 people. I have a buddy named Kevin Flint, and he was my sergeant. And we're still friends. Actually, I just had a bachelor party last week. We went whitewater rafting.
Okay.
And so he was there, and he was in charge of the food and the booze. Nice. And he's a few years older than me. And so when I got to 3rd Anglico, he was a sergeant, and he was just cool, like just cool guy, educated, could have went the officer route, but did the enlisted way. And I learned a lot from him. And throughout the years, we've, even after the Marine Corps, he got out right before we deployed. Just how it worked out, it wasn't like intentional, but
yeah.
after I got back, I was a mess a few years later, and I didn't have a job or anything like that. And he was doing well. So he's like, hey, man, I'll put you to work. You know, let's talk while we're working, kind of thing. And our friendship kind of grew. And so now he's obviously like my brother.
It's awesome.
Very good friend. And at the same time, I also lost my best friend, my childhood friend, in a car accident. So that happened. And then he lost his brother to a bicycle accident. And so I'm like, now we're connecting over this, we're grieving over people.
Yeah.
And it just brought us even closer together. We ended up doing a business together. We did woodworking. We were making tables and benches and just crafts. And we did like stages for bar mitzvahs, because they have a ton of money when they're doing bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs. And so we'd make stages and props and stuff like that. And it was great, And so he had construction knowledge. So then I learned construction.
Nice. Sounds like he really helped guide you along some sort of path.
Yeah.
Just through your military connection.
Yeah.
That started it all.
Great friend, mentor, and, had fun along the way. And that was his thing. It was like, hey, we got a job, but we can have fun doing it. And we can have fun after we finish that, but let's get this done, kind of thing. And so business, and fun at the same time. And so I try to carry that in my life as well. And then the other person would probably be like my drill instructor, one of my drill instructors, Staff Sergeant Tovez, who was the same way. Very fun. I mean, you're in boot camp and he's your drill instructor, so he's not fun.
But there's only so much fun you can have in that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
they crack jokes.
But they crack jokes, and he had the funniest stuff. And I mean, there was instances where he was so intense. I mean, he broke a window with his finger, yelling at a recruit. They were going the wrong way or doing something wrong, and he started yelling, and he just started pointing, and then the window broke, and we're like, "What just happened?" Never missed a beat. Probably bleeding. Didn't do anything. Just was like business, and then went back and was cracking jokes. I'm like, dude, this guy's awesome.
He's pulling a real life Django Unchained with like blood, everything. Leonardo DiCaprio.
And he was the same way, and he taught me something that was that I use to this day, was basically take a little piece from the people that you like, whether it be their humor, whether it be a mannerism, whether it be a belief, and carry that with you and make that part of your own thing, but make it your own kind of thing. So he's like, oh yeah, my dad did this, or my best friend does this, and I use that. So his thing was like, he always bowed. He did this like weird kimosabi thing, and he also said a bunch of stuff, but I do that with people now. So I go, hey man, I like your work ethic, or I like the way you do this, or that's cool how you smirk, or like I always say yo, like Rambo, because I really liked Rambo. So, or Sylvester Stallone. And so
I thought you were gonna say Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. Hey yo,
yo, Chico, a little toothpick in my mouth. Yeah, I could use that. I could say it either way, depending on where I'm at. Play to the crowd. But I mean, I do that to this day, where I see things in people and I go, I really like that. I want to make that part of my life and piece myself together thing.
That's very perceptive of you that you took that from boot camp. That's awesome. Talking about drill instructors, I mean, they always crack jokes. I remember we had a gunner sergeant Carrasco, and he would call us individual communists, and I thought that was so hilarious, because only a certain number of Marines got it, and you could tell. And you're it's like, you bunch of individual communists, and I'd be like, and everybody like, what are you laughing about? Don't worry about that, Bo. It's over your head.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. A lot of people are like traumatized from boot camp, and I had a ball, man. I was fit. I was prepared. I talked to people beforehand. My recruiter was very open about, hey, these are things going to happen. I studied Marine Corps history. I did my general orders. I would run laps in the track, because I was also terrible at running. So I would write a general order on my arm for the day, and I'd run, and I'd just repeat that general order, because I was so afraid of not knowing them. And so I was in it. So boot camp was
Was good for you.
It was difficult, but it was good, and I knew it was coming. And there was things that I didn't expect that happened, especially like ingraining that discipline and stuff, and just muscle memory kind of things. But I was prepped, man. I was ready, and I think I went through boot camp. I knew I was gonna like third weekend. I'm like, okay, I got this. I'm graduating. That there's no way I'm not.
Okay, so at some point you started getting involved in video and photo rolls for bands, local bands. Did you start to get back into video and film before you got out? Was it after you got out? When did you get out?
So, we mentioned that I was a reservist. So I had regular, duties, regular life kind of thing outside of the military, non-military stuff. So I had a job. I had two jobs and I went to school full time. So
wow.
I had a night job and I had a weekend job. I worked at Blockbuster Video, and then I worked for a company called Granger, and they're a logistics company. So I was like, oh, I do logistics. I can totally get into logistics. So I worked from like 9 o'clock at night to like 8 o'clock in the morning. I went to school at 10. So I would get a nap. I'd go to school. I'd do a full day of school. And then on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'd worked at Blockbuster. It was great. So I was like, I have my entertainment. I was studying broadcasting and television production at a place called Mount San Antonio College here in Walnut, California. And they had like a news truck. So we did all the sports events.
So you're doing some journalism.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, broadcasters, camera work, directing, producing, that kind of stuff.
It's a great way to learn kind of everything when it comes to production.
And live action, man. Live is intense because it's on the fly. Things happen. You got to be, really quick and snappy about it. And so, that was fun. And then they also had a studio. So I was like, dude, I'm going to make music videos with my friends because my friends are musicians. And I'm like, dude, I just want to be around them because they're cool, because they're making music. And also I get to go to free shows, when I hang out with them. And so I was like, hey, I asked these guys, I was, two of the guys I was in school with growing up. And I'm like, hey, can I do a music video for your band? And they're like, yeah, totally. So that's what I want to do. I wanted to be a music video director once I kind of found what I wanted to do in the industry, I guess you could say.
What was video production? Was that passion kind of a reason that you kind of put the Marine Corps, you got out?
No.
Okay.
I got out I think it was time. I was also kind of, I had a bad experience as far as my personal life while I was overseas. And so when I came back, I was like, well, that sucks. And that also changed my perspective of my path in video production, like making videos. I stopped doing that right after I got back. Because I was doing
that during that OIF deployment?
Yeah. And so as soon as I got back, I'm like, I don't want to do video production anymore.
Do you mind if I ask what it was?
It's just a breakup.
Okay.
Just a breakup. Yep.
Gotcha.
Just a bad breakup.
Breakup. Yep.
Getting left getting left overseas sucks. Getting that phone call, like, what do you mean you're going to be with somebody else? So anyways,
that sucks.
I got back and we used to do things together in video production. And so I was like, you know what? I just want to distance myself. I don't want to be in the same circles as you. And I was out. So I kind of left that on the shelf for a while.
Wow.
And then I moved to where I'm at now, which is the San Fernando Valley, for a job, Raytheon. So I started working for Raytheon.
So you started going into like the defense contractor kind of route.
I had a clearance, dude. I had clearance because I was logistics and I handled really expensive stuff. And I just always tell people I had really top secret clearance because I was a secret agent and all this. Yeah. But very not true. But
but the TS clearance does get you into certain job field that a lot of people can't get into.
Dude, it was incredible. And so Raytheon's like, hey, we need you because we can't find anybody that has both.
What year was
background.
This?
And so that was 2005. And that was about the time I got out. So as I was transitioning out. But what's crazy is I almost did, I think when I do my math correctly, like I did like a little over 4 years of active duty between training, deployment, and all that stuff. I'm like, I should have just signed up for active duty instead of reservist. What was the point kind of thing, But
well, I mean,
especially for people around that time, is you just got sucked into it. You had to, because a war was going on, and 9/11 and all those things.
Yeah, in '98 when you first joined, you probably didn't think that it would be as much as it was going to be.
Never.
But then you also, it gave you another skill. You were able to finish your school at the same time. So you worked for Raytheon for about how many years? And then how many years?
Maybe 2 or 3 years. And then they ended up selling their part of that entity. So they did aircraft. It was called RAC, Raytheon Aircraft Services, and Corporation Services, something, and RES. And they sold that portion off, and then it became Hawker Beechcraft. And so they make like Premier jets. They do King Airs, like the two big prop planes, like super, super cool planes. Cessnas, they do the maintenance on the Cessnas.
So you really distance yourself from what you're doing now and what you did before.
Dude, I was in warehousing. I had like a stamp from what is that? The entity that does all the FAA. Like I had to get like approved for an inspector stamp.
Wow.
I used to do the hazmat training for them, and the hazmat shipping training for Raytheon. And so they would send me all over to teach people how to ship hazardous materials.
Interesting.
And so that was, very different. Again, like you're saying, like just and even from the Marine Corps, it's like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You then left Raytheon and you went to go work for Solar City and Tesla. What was it like to work for an Elon Musk company? I know when I got out in 2015, there was a job fair in Fort Lewis and Seattle, because I originally went back to Seattle, went back home. I'm originally I'm a West Coaster as well. And,
I'll be there next month. Or in 2 months, in a month and a half. Yeah, a month and a half.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I can't wait to go back and see my grandma and my family and stuff. Anyway.
Oh, awesome.
But anyways, I was in Fort Lewis in Seattle soon. Even before I got out, I think I went to a job fair there. And I remember Solar City, and I remember they were heavily recruiting military. They basically said I'd have a job if I applied. And all I know is they kept saying the name Elon Musk. And this was 2015, and they acted like I should have known him. Huh. Now, be advised, I was, then this was before his Rogan appearances or anything like that. I haven't lived in the West Coast since 2003. I had no idea about the guy at the time. But it's like they revered him. So for you actually worked for Solar City. You actually worked for Tesla. What was it like working in that environment, in that culture, and in that company? And it's definitely probably a unique time.
Yeah. It was very techy, and that was kind of new to me, because they're like, oh, we have snacks and we have, a coffee machine. And I'm like, what? Like, this is awesome. Like
that whole tech culture.
Yeah. That whole tech culture. And it's basically to keep you at work and to just keep you working, Don't go to the store. Don't get snacks. We got all your pokey bait here.
We got you.
Yeah, we got you. We'll pay for it. It's a tax write-off for a company. You can write snacks and stuff. You write that off completely. I know now, having my own company, but I didn't know at the time. And I'm like, this is just cool. They had sodas, they had drinks, they had snacks. And I'm like, these guys care about me, But again, tech culture. And it was also really cool. They didn't have any offices. They had meeting rooms. Nobody had an office. Everybody had just a desk. You may had partitions to kind of keep sound away, but for the most part, nobody had like an office. Like even my boss, from the top to the bottom, nobody had an office.
Interesting.
And so that was fun, because you can always, everybody's approachable. I think we were a big family, and again, it was kind of like the Marine thing. What I was mentioning when we crossed the line was like, we're all doing this for the first time kind of thing. And so ideas were heard. We would run with, hey man, that sounds awesome. You found a better way to do something. Let's do that, And so they really listened to you. They took everybody's strengths and they made the company better. And we grew intensely fast. I was also tasked with training people. So I set up their fleet of vehicles for Southern California. I set up their warehouses for Southern California. I came up with the SOPs for their warehousing, and worked in conjunction with another guy to do the ordering process for ordering their raw materials, working with vendors to get raw materials down in price. So like the first year I was there, me and another guy named Raymond, we saved them like $1.3 million just by making phone calls and telling guys, hey, do you know who we are? We are Solar City. We need cheaper prices, kind of thing. And they're like, I'm like, Elon Musk. Yeah, like to your point of Elon Musk, just say his name and it'll, it's like the panty drop of like logistics and, supply chain.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, you guys are up and coming. Cool. Yeah, we'll drop our prices, and
Very
it wasn't
cool.
that easy, but it was a lot of phone calls and a lot of explaining who Elon Musk was.
Yeah, no, it sounds like in that era and on the West Coast, people kind of knew his name. I had no idea before he blew up. Yeah.
I got in. So what happened was Raytheon closed in like March of 2009. And so I was with them for like 3 years. And then they changed it to another company. But I went back to school in that summer. And I got approached because I put my resume online. And this guy named Will Arnold hit me up and goes, hey, we'd really like to talk to you. We're Solar City. This is our mission, solar. And I'm like, I don't know anything about solar, whatever. And I was like, hey, I'm in school. I kind of don't have the time. And he was persistent. And so then we talked. I met them in like July. And then I met them again like 2 weeks later. And they're like, hey, we really want you. And I said, well, I'm in the middle of school. I'd love to finish my classes at least, because they made me an offer that I was like, okay, I'm going to jump back into work. Yeah. So they made me an offer. And I was like, if you can wait till January 2010, I'll do it. And they did. Like from the summer to January. And I was there from January 2010 to January 2013. And yeah, it was crazy to see them just grow.
You were talking about your education there, that you wanted to finish it. Did you use like a GI Bill? I know reservists kind of get like a GI Bill thing from the VA.
Yeah, I didn't use it until I actually went to audio school. So at the time, things were changing, and there's a bunch of I know IAVA had really pushed for new changes in kind of like how things moved. And this wasn't one of them, but I mean, it's really important, the work that they do, advocacy for veterans and stuff. But they had the Voc Rehab. So I used Voc Rehab, and they're like, hey, you can use your GI Bill. It transforms into this Voc Rehab thing. And I went from, because I was done with logistics after everything. Yeah. I ended up getting fired. It was pretty bad. So then,
man.
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, it was a surprise to me as well. So, okay. But I was kind of lost. And I think that kind of messes with your mind when you're kind of alone, and that I was just so used to being busy, and things were happening with me where I was having PTSD issues, just stuff resurfacing that I didn't know. And I think that ultimately had some effect on why they let me go. But gotcha. Even after, it's like, okay, now I got no purpose. What do I do? And so I really, I kind of took it as a blessing in disguise, where it forced me to really think about what my next step was. And so I did a lot of research and a lot of soul searching. And months later, I got the bright idea to go to audio school. I talked to my counselor at the VA, somebody that was assigned to me. Yeah. And they go, hey, you should try Voc Rehab. You can totally change your career to what you want it to be. So I did that. And they're like, hey, we'll set you up with the laptop. The laptop I'm on right now was provided by the VA.
Really?
Yeah, for school with Voc Rehab. Wow. Because I needed it as an audio engineer to start doing my projects and doing recording. And so they also bought me Pro Tools, my first edition of Pro Tools, and got me going. They're like, okay, now you fly, little bird. They send you into audio school. They're like, go for it, and laptop in hand kind of thing,
So vr&e, it's not called vr&e, it was called Voc Rehab. So they're the ones that got you started down this journey.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. They gave me a check in my hand and go, take it to school. And I took it to school, and here I am, talking.
So we did a whole benefits breakdown on the vr&e program. If you get a chance, again, if you're listening to this, check it in the archives. They break down the whole program. Good stuff. Why audio? What made you want to go into audio? Because you've done film and video and acted. Yeah. And what made you go down this path?
And I mentioned before that I was thinking about being like a video director, music video director. And so I'm like, well, I love music. And I always thought it was cool to see these guys with boom. He has the headphones, and he's like, all right, guys, talk. and I was like, okay, what does that guy do, and how does that affect the product? I'm a movie fan, a movie buff,
Yeah.
TV junkie. I just got back into watching Perfect Strangers from the '80s, and that was a great show.
Okay.
They're based in Chicago, and so it's just a great story of like immigrants moving, and it reminds me of my parents.
Yeah.
And so my parents are both immigrants. So I'm first generation. So I'm like, oh, this is great. This is what they probably went through, their transition into American life.
A very underrated show, but I think a lot of people have seen it.
Oh, hilarious. Like,
yeah.
It's like 8-9 seasons. It's insane. So now they have it on Hulu. So watch it if you can. And then Family Matters came from that. So Urkel, Steve Urkel.
Yeah.
That was a spinoff of Perfect Strangers because the wife, Harriet Winslow, was the elevator operator in that show.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Carl Winslow, the cop, is in Perfect
Yeah.
Strangers as well. Anyways,
wow.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I love television and, history, appreciation for the art.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I really like sound. Like, that's interesting. I'm like, things started clicking,
Yeah.
And I was like, how does this work? And I had a friend that went through the program, and I asked him, and he's like, dude, I think you'd be great for it. You obviously are talking about it like, rambling and like I'm doing right now. And he's like, there's something there, kind of like sees the passion in there,
Yeah.
And he's like, go for it. He's like, and especially if the VA will help you, just really, really go for it. And, I love music. So like, I've gone through my phases, like my punk phase, my R&B phase, my hip hop phase. Now I'm in my funk and blues phase and like country mode,
Okay.
So like Old Dominion and like Garth Brooks and like just I love everything. So it's kind of crazy. Like I can even listen to foreign music and pick something out of it that I love. Like, listen to the recording of this. Oh, listen to the vocals. Oh, listen to the reverberation, or like something about every song I can pull and be like appreciative about.
When I was in Romania, I really got into a lot of foreign music. There was this artist named Adalia, and she just had it reminded me, and she's Algerian, French Algerian, but her voice reminded me of something that you would hear in the 40s, like from like World War II. Good stuff. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
And then my wife recently, and it's strange to me, but she enjoys it. Russian rap.
Oh,
it's a thing.
Dude, French rap is awesome too.
Yeah, she's all about the Russian rap, and I'm like, okay,
dude, French rap. It's like fancy rap. It's crazy. That's crazy.
I have no idea what they're saying, and I'm all about the lyrics. For me, it's the meaning of the lyrics. So I can't so I can't get into it unless I know the meaning behind. Anyways, Russian rap,
and that's another part to music is lyrics. And like we just started watching the Selena thing, and I'm like, they brought up a song, and I'm like, oh my god, those lyrics are beautiful. Like just reading the lyrics, you're like, this is a beautiful song. Even without hearing the music, you're like, yes, this is incredible. But yeah, so all aspects of music, all aspects of sound, television, everything. Just, I knew that was my path.
Gotcha. So you went to school, got a gig, and now you're with Advantage Post-Production Sound Services in Burbank. Yeah. Talk to me about the project Talk to me about the project that you and your team were nominated for and eventually won an Emmy for.
Yeah. So we worked on a project with Disney called Eleanor of Avalor. It's a children's animated series about a Latinx princess. It's the first ever for Disney. And so in a TV series, I believe. And it's pretty cool because it's fantasy with action, but it's also made for the younger audience. And
hey, as kids, we love that stuff though.
Well, no, and what's cool is Advantage is awesome because it was like the perfect place. These guys have been doing like audio for like 30 years, over 30 years. Yeah. They did like, you ever seen Gargoyles?
Yeah. Like, I still watched on Disney Plus.
The Elf animated series, the Back to the Future series animated, Ghostbusters. Dude, my boss, the owner of the studio, was mixing those shows. And so,
wow,
like, his name is Jim Hodson, but he's been doing it for 30 years. Their team has been doing it for, 20 years for some people, 10 years for other guys, but they're very sharp. So just getting to a studio like that was pretty intense. They have like, my boss has like 5 Emmys for himself. And what's cool is his dad is also a veteran. So that kind of really his Marine
Yeah.
Corps too.
Yeah. You're right.
And he's a World War II vet. I think he's like in his 90s. And so we related over that, you know, I'm like, hey, I'm a veteran. Your dad's a veteran. Hey, give me a job, you know? So
you love veterans, right?
Yeah. And
cool.
you know, so Disney was really cool, but they work with everybody. So like Nickelodeon, Warner Brothers, Universal Studios, or Universal, and pretty much all the big players. I think Amazon is not in there, but if Amazon is listening, I'll totally work for Amazon stuff.
Definitely got some big heavy hitter clients.
Oh no, I mean Mickey Mouse, dude. My first show was Scooby Doo, like iconic television show was my first shot, and it was basically make or break it. Hey, we're gonna see how you do on this episode, and then go from there. And then I'm like, I turned it in, and I was so nervous. I spent like all night editing that thing, and the next day, like, yeah, that sounds great.
That's
like, that's it. That's all I got. Like, no award, nothing. No,
dude. That's the job.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Do it again. You know. And so I've gotten a lot faster. You know, but kind of crazy because Elena was. I was also like second in line for recordist or third in line, and so I had to ask for that show. Like, hey, this really means a lot. It's like my background. It's my people. You know, I'd like to be a part of this in some way. This will make my parents proud, kind of thing. And so they gave me a shot on that one. And again, your work kind of speaks for itself. You know, now I'm working with them again. Some people that are on the same team, I'm working with them on another project. We got some stuff coming out that obviously I can't talk about, but it's really cool. And you know, I always tell people, like, as much as I hate to say it, it's like, check my social media because I'll probably post about it.
Yeah. Or,
you know, just like look my name up. And I hate to say that stuff because it sounds so like, oh, look
pretentious,
at me.
But that's where the information is.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it is. And so, yeah, I mean, just, you know, keep abreast of my work. And I love sharing, and I love being in, dude, I get to watch cartoons all day, you know. And are you familiar with Foley?
I am. I love Foley. I've loved the trade ever since I saw the Lord of the Ring appendices, the behind the scenes of the Battlefield and Medal of Honor video games. They did a bunch of series of like what Foley is. Are you always listening to sound out in the world and analyzing it now, and on how you can incorporate it to another scene that you're working on? Yeah.
So it's funny you ask. I'm always listening to sound. Like my fiance, I'm like tapping on things and I'm rubbing things. I'm like, squeaky stuff, you know. But even before that, unbeknownst to me that I would be in this field, I was doing that already. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I've always loved listening to footsteps. So in my drill phase in boot camp, I'm like, oh, that sound of 100 guys marching in sync is beautiful.
Yes.
It's just cool.
It's a sound that you'll never get reincorporate. You'll never hear it somewhere else in the world.
Yeah. And I didn't think about that until I was in it, and somebody asked me the same question, like, do you think? And I'm like, actually, I have, and I've always done that. And so when I walk alone, especially, I'll listen to my footstep, and I'm like, how are they doing it? But I also want to get better.
How are they doing it?
yeah, and it's me, you know, it's me walking. You know, I'm like, how is sound happening? You know, but awesome. it's. Sound is so cool, and it changes with the slightest little, you know, thing. And so sometimes we'll have to put 4 or 5 things together and layer them and create new sounds. And it's always different. So Foley is, if people don't know what Foley is, it's the footsteps in a show or movie or even podcasts. Yeah. It's also props. So it could be as easy as me picking up a pen from the desk, picking up my phone, tapping on the screen, tapping on my hands, clapping, all those things that are added after production. And so production's its own beast, and then there's post-production. And so that's what I'm involved in. And sometimes we have to sweeten sound effects, you know, so a body fall, they may have a sound, but then we sweeten it. We call them sweeteners. Yeah. And then that adds an extra layer of oomph kind of thing to it. So we go through a show, and we do a show a day, and I don't know. I don't even know how many shows I've done now.
I know my colleague, Ben Potts, he was our audio engineer at NASCAR Production. I know he's going to really enjoy this because he was so good at sweetening our sound. He's a really good sweetener that we have. Yeah. And then, you know, one of my experience with Foley was at Syracuse University when we had to make a soundscape and basically just create sound to create an environment where we couldn't use dialogue. We totally skipped the rules. We used dialogue from like a radio,
you know? Telling a story. Yeah, that's great.
And so
I love that.
Yeah, so we did that, and then my buddy Nick was great at that. Nick Brown, he was, and Nick McNaughton, Nick Squared, both of them. I worked with Nick McNaughton in the soundscape, but Nick Brown really did one where he totally recreated the scene from Saving Private Ryan, where they kind of load up before they assault the machine gun nest, and totally like made it into like like turn off your cell phones and turn on Who Wants Popcorn, like, but like made the jangles of all the gear and everything that as they were running, and I was like, that was sweet Foley. I mean, the rack and the rifle, they recreated all those sounds.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that we did in audio school, was like they tell you take a scene or take a commercial or something and redo all the sound. And my project was a Lego Star Wars thing, and it had already a ton of sound in it. So then I'm like, okay, strip it all away and build it. And I actually have it on YouTube right now.
That's great.
So if you look up my name, Star Wars, stuff like that, and Lego Star Wars. But yeah, it was fun. And instead of sound effects, I also had my friends make sound effects. So we're like, you know, and like, and like we all did voices and stuff. Because that's kind of like my humor, you know, it's just like throwing my little flair. And so it's kind of, it's just crazy how like, I'm just like, I had like this weird thought. I'm like, wow, that was awesome when we did that. You know, it's like,
well, after this, we'll share the soundscapes that we made and stuff like that. I'm really, like I said, for me, it's like, I mean, I add sound effects. I know where Foley should be, but I'm not the guy that is the one sweetening it, the one creating it. And I think it's such a creative skill. Now my former colleagues and I, we always have this discussion. Do you have any interest to break out into the future as a freelancer? And if Advantage is listening to this in the distant future, it really seems like there's a lot of pluses and minuses when people, when, you know, creatives, producers, editors, audio engineers, when they talk about going freelance.
Yeah. So I am freelance right now. I own my own company.
Okay. So you're not staff in Advantage.
So I am, and I'm not. They're my biggest client.
Okay. Gotcha.
But I am free.
The work's steady there.
The work is steady there. And so I have, I wouldn't even say regular work, but when they look for Foley, they come to me.
Gotcha.
And so I think I'm actually on their staff page though, because I'm always there. So,
yeah.
But I do outside work, with different clients. So there's a client named Zach King, who's a filmmaker, and he does all those magic in the TV and grabbing things and pulling them out. And look him up, Zach King. And so I was his sound guy when I started. That was my first gig.
Okay.
And from there, I just kind of kept doing work with them. Any commercials that may come by from him or other people. I just finished a project called Vice Force Action Squad. And it's a detective show. It's on YouTube right now.
Okay.
And that was with a veteran named Miguel Lima and another guy, Eric Ernst. And, you know, so I'll take projects from all over, you know, anytime, because I'm hungry. Like, I will never stop being hungry, you know, and I want to learn. And if I can do it in live action, if I can do it in feature film, and I've done feature films before, live action, you know, before, and I just want to do sound. I really just want to work and do what I do and have fun doing it, and bring other people, you know. I'm pretty open to talking to people that are interested in it. Yeah. I think there's been like one time where I let this one guy down that was a veteran. And he's like, hey, man, do you want to have coffee? And I just had like a bad week, and somebody else flaked on me. Like another veteran was like, hey, man, can you hook me up? And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, I spent like so much time with this guy, and he just like ghosted me. And I was like, bad taste in my mouth, and I took it out on this other guy. So if you're listening, dude, I'm sorry. I'll totally help you out.
Call me again.
Yeah, call me again. I need you.
So, I mean, it sounds like this is your passion. It's obviously that this is what you love to do.
Dude, Foley is, I'm telling you, I get to watch cartoons every day at work. Like, it's just insane. I still crack up at these kid jokes and these kid scenarios, and some of them are the same scenario, you know, but just different characters, you know. But I still find it funny, and I still find it entertaining. You know, it's great. It's great work.
The reason I asked about freelance versus staff, because when I first got out, I was a combat camera guy. I went straight staff. NASCAR Productions hired me. I was staff. Medical was taken care of.
Comfortable.
I knew I was comfortable. I knew exactly where I was every day. But I've seen guys go freelance and I've seen them do very well. But it also seems like it's very feast or famine for any creator that might be listening to this, that is thinking about freelance or thinking about staff work and thinking, what advice would you have to them if they were like, okay, I want to create my own business. I want to go after this.
Literally have that same drive, have that same passion. Do not waver. Put it in your work. Put everything in your work. Don't complain. I complain after the fact. When I finish a project, then I can complain, but it's done. I don't complain before because then I'm just wasting time.
Or during.
Yeah.
The client's seeing you complain. Don't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do it at the end. Have a great attitude. Know who you're talking to. Learn everybody. Learn all their roles. Learn everybody's job and how that affects your job. I think it gives you good perspective. Like, so I'm trying to get my mixer skills up because I want to know how my work affects the mixer. And so I go, oh, hey, mixer, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? How does that play in with the music, the dialogue, the sound effects, the backgrounds? Because there's a lot of things. And so they go, hey, you can do this, you can do that, you can lower your volume, you can record hotter, whatever the thing is for that show. So I'm continually learning. So keep learning. Don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable. Learn new things. Read. Look up new equipment. Try new equipment. Be creative. Think outside the box. Try something new. If it doesn't work, have a backup. I tend to do that. If I turn in something new, a new sound or something, then we're like, let's see if the client likes it. We have a backup. Like, okay, this is the normal way we do it. So let's do that. Takes us a second, but just in case, and then we just mute it and we'll leave it there, and we'll tell the sound supervisor and say, hey, we left that in there, but see what they say first, kind of thing, And
it all depends on relationships and knowing the client and things like that. I always like to do an A or a B. I would always like to already have that back if I can. Always have that backup ready to go if I want to cut something a different way or want to do something different.
But
And I know the clients that would be receptive to it,
Yeah. And to your point is those relationships is develop relationships, tell people who you are. I know it's hard. Like, again, I don't like to be in front of the camera kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm in the background. Like,
Too late.
I've worked logistics and I've worked, like working behind the scenes now. But meet people, let them know who you are, because that's important. I didn't meet the Elena of Avalor people into like maybe 7 episodes in, and then they met me and then they're like, oh, you're cool. And then when we went to an award show, when we lost, first time we lost, and they were cool, but I got to hang out with them. And so they knew who I was. And then now we keep in touch. Now we're friends, and we see each other at different events.
And when when there's a project, oh yeah.
Now when there's a project, hey, David works at Advantage or he does his own thing, whatever, they'll call me, and other clients will too, because they'll recommend if they have a friend doing a side project or something, hey, you can just call him and then I'll do work, So develop those relationships and be genuine, man. Like, if you're a jerk, just be a jerk. Like, just don't fake it. People can see through the fakeness, man. If you're cool, and a lot of people in this industry are, you'll get far. But there are bad people. There are, just like in any job, dude. Like, it's the same thing, just different environment. And I've also learned that too. I'm like, there's always going to be somebody you don't like in the industry or something, and it's like,
seeing fakeness was kind of one of the reasons I walked away from like LA and New York. And I was like, I'm not gonna, the first time I was ever on set, and this was out in North Carolina, Wilmington, when they were doing stuff in Wilmington. And I saw an actress, and my first time I was like, I don't like this. And I was like, I'll go back to documentaries and sports media and things like that. But to your point, if you're genuine, you're going to find your tribe.
Yeah.
If you're just yourself, you're going to find that tribe that will be like, yeah, you're all right.
Yeah. I mean, and there's people I know in the industry that I've never worked with, but I just know, and they do their own thing and I do mine. Yeah. I met a lot of people through vr&e. I know you mentioned that in the past, Veterans in Media and Entertainment.
Yeah.
And so I linked up with them before when they were beginning, and I just needed to find veterans in the industry because I was nobody. I was
It was
an audio engineer.
It was called a different name. It was like veterans and
VFT.
VFT, yeah.
Film and television.
I love that they changed it to military and entertainment because they expanded the it's not just film.
Yeah, right? Everything. I mean, especially nowadays, dude.
Yeah, everybody does everything.
Insane. Dude, everybody watches our stuff on their phones, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's supposed to be on the television or it's supposed to be on the big screen, kind of thing, But
when it was, still,
it is what it is.
Yeah, when it was still in VFT, and I don't know if my bio and portfolio is still on there. And I like that they have that you can create your own thing and people can find you on that website.
Yeah, I'm on there, and I'm listed as a mentor as well. So yeah,
that's great.
I volunteered with them for years doing the parking lots. So, dude, audio guy doing parking lots. How does that make sense? But guess what it was?
What's that?
Guess what it was? I got to meet everybody when they came in.
Perfect.
So it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let me do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody knew me as a parking guy and the audio guy.
There you go. So you're a mentor with them. When I was in Charlotte, I used to joke with another veteran, Paul, that we were the Charlotte chapter. Our portfolios were on the site, but it was just us out in Charlotte. We were just like, all right, well, Paul Porter, me, we're
present.
We're present. What's VME out there like for you all in California? It seems very active. It seems like there's a lot of stuff that goes on with it.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because, like I said, I didn't really have too much of a career when I kind of linked up with them.
Yeah,
and I was meeting other people that were just in their budding careers, and so now it's kind of cool to see everybody doing stuff. Jennifer Marshall, I think she was on the show before.
Yeah, she's been on
Michael Broderick. Like all these guys doing stuff that are big shows. True Detective, Stranger Things. Some guys doing voiceover.
Jennifer's got her own show now.
Yeah,
from where
we watch it, and she was at my housewarming like 2 years ago.
That's good stuff.
But it was like, it's cool to see people just. And I helped her move, actually. Helped her move. See, that's what kind of friend I am. But
logistics.
Yeah, logistics, exactly. It was that thing. And I've never made my career about, I've never kind of like, hey, well, I need you to do something, a favor, stuff like, dude, just be cool with me. We'll be friends. Again, we've never worked together, but we could still be friends and we can still have a relationship and we can still talk the industry and stuff like that and our experiences and stuff. So it's cool to see that progression and have that relationship that that there's no kind of strings attached or anything like that,
Absolutely.
And so a lot of people say that Hollywood is a certain type. I don't get that because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
So I don't surround myself with people like that. My mom always taught me, tell me, it's basically translated roughly is, tell me the people you hang out with and I'll tell you what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
And you look at my friends and stuff and you'll see that they're kind, generous. They give themselves, they'll donate their time. They're helpful. I mean, all things that I aspire to be, and I hope that I am, but I try to really live by that. And again, it goes back to my drill instructor saying, take a little bit from everybody,
Yeah.
And so that's always stuck with me, and mom's advice kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly. And I think, it's good that there's a group like VME that has that kind of camaraderie, like veterans kind of, like you talk about, it's not LA, it's more like a veteran centric thing. And then the first,
it can be though.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It gets like that sometimes, man. And that's real life though. That's anywhere. That's any job. 100%. It's not only Hollywood.
100%.
And so I try to tell people,
documentary and sports media, you see that there too. So yeah, absolutely.
But I also met people through VFW, the American Legion, IAVA, and I volunteered for all of them. You know.
Yes, I saw that in your bio. And it looks like you got yourself out there and say, hey, this is me and this is what I do, and you met some friends and have created a cool network. I think it's great. Jennifer, in her first interview on Borne the Battle, she's been on a couple of times. We talked about aliens the last time she came on.
Nice.
It was a Halloween episode. It was pretty good. It was a different, unique take on Borne the Battle.
I think I did hear that one.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, what can I do for Halloween? Oh yeah, Jennifer like chases aliens and stuff. So we had her on. It's amazing that everybody's like, yeah, cool. And it's not like big news that like, hey,
there's aliens out there. That's a big deal.
But she was a big proponent of the VME and the Legion when she was on her first episode. Is there a veteran in the community or a veteran nonprofit whom you've had an experience with, or that you've worked with? And you mentioned a couple that you'd like to mention, like in further detail, if you were to pick one.
Yeah, I'm actually going through the process of getting on Team Semper Fi with Semper Fi Fund.
Okay.
And so Semper Fi Fund helps veterans in need in different ways and different aspects. They're a very highly rated nonprofit. So that means that they utilize their money well. They don't have a lot of overhead, or they don't waste their money, crazy advertising and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And so I'm going through the process with them right now. With COVID and stuff, it's been kind of different, but they have programs like yoga, video yoga and different things, because my big thing is rehabbing my back and my physical fitness, my health. So they have a lot of those things for self wellness. And so I'm using those programs. They're also teaching me golf, because I could use golf in business.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So they're kind of putting me in touch with the right people, and if they can't do for you, they'll direct you in the right way. And so you're assigned somebody, and so I have somebody assigned to me, Jennifer, and they're great. I mean, they're very attentive, and I've had friends go through it, and I actually volunteered for them with a golf tournament, Rob Riggle's Invitational here in California.
Yeah.
And Rob Riggle, the comedian, does it, as people know, USMC veteran. And
comedian, hilarious.
Yeah, super funny guy. And he brings celebrities. And so I would work the holes. They would have, that sounds weird, but I'd work whatever they need me to do, I'd basically do. And then I made a bunch of signage, because I told you I had a wood shop. I made some signage for Semper Fi Fund. And I did this for a couple of years. And then they're like, how are you doing? They kind of noticed something, and we were talking, and we talked about my story, and they're like, I think you can use our program. I think you can, not only, be a member, be a client kind of thing. What's that commercial?
Yeah.
I was
hair club for men kind of thing. I'm not only the owner, but I'm also a client type of thing.
Yeah.
Hair club for men.
And so that was, so that was a thing. And so I go, okay, let me give it a shot. And it took me a little while, but I finally got my paperwork in and stuff. And they're like, yeah, let's help you out. Let's fill in those gaps. Let's get you where you want to be and where you see yourself, kind of thing. And they talk to you for a long time. It's great. And they check up on you. I think that's a personal touch that I think veterans sometimes need, especially now with us losing a lot of people with COVID, because they're by themselves, they're lonely and things like that. I think people just need, like, hey, how are you? What's going on? And so I tend to ask a lot of my veteran friends that I know have those things, like, hey, what's up, man? How are you really doing? Like, all BS aside, just be straight with me.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to share those kind of things that happened with me. I had panic attacks when I was working at Solar City before, and my assistant was an Army reservist that got me into the VA. I mean, I literally had a breakdown where I had this crying spell, and I was crying all the way to work, and I didn't know why. And he's like, dude, I know what's up, and took me to the VA, got me registered. That's how I started. 2008 was when I went to the VA, and 5 years after the theater of war. And so, yeah, it's pretty incredible that how the community works. Like, this guy just seen and was willing to take me, even though I was boss, but just to get me the help that I needed, and then everybody else after. And so I try to pay it forward, kind of thing, and
that's good.
I don't make a lot of money, even though I'm in Hollywood and I do well, and I have an Emmy in the back,
Yeah.
But those things don't come with money, they're not Pulitzers or whatever, but I try to give my time, because I'm like, I don't want to give my money because I need that for everyday things.
Yeah.
But I can give my time sometimes, and I do that. I also work with a group called Miracle League of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And we do baseball for kids with disabilities.
Very cool.
And of all disabilities, mental, physical, kids of all ages. And we play baseball with them in a special field that the Dodgers help us build. And my old roommate started that.
Wow.
he worked on a project with Oprah and as a production assistant, and then brought it to LA. And so, I mean, I feel like I've been blessed with a lot. And so I'd love to give back, and I'd love to help people kind of find their passion, find their way. Like I did, it took me into my 30s, but here I am, and so that's another lesson, is it's never too late.
Very good. Very good. What's one thing that you learned during your time in the military that you apply to what you do today?
I mean, I've gone over a few things, but just kind of really adapt and overcome kind of thing. Things are going to come at you from all different aspects of life, and things that you didn't expect or plan for. It's like the Ferris Bueller quote, it's like, or what is it? Life's what happens when you're making other plans kind of thing,
Yeah.
So what movie was that?
Anyways, I can't remember, but yeah. It does sound like you've been very adaptable in your life and your career. And
you just kind of go with the flow. And again,
Semper Gumby.
If you get a job, dude, if you are flipping burgers at some fast food joint, you be the best burger flipper there. I love people with passion for what they do, regardless of what they're doing. I've been at a coffee shop and just got a coffee, and like, it's just perfect. I'm like, you're the best coffee server ever, and I love you, and it's awesome. Thank you so much. I will tip you. Like,
yeah.
And I take my job the same way. Like, I just want to be the best at what I do, so that way somebody's like, dude, I love you. Thank you so much. You make my life easier, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's all I want to be, and I hope other people kind of do that in their life. It's like, just be the best you, man. Just be the best you. Do whatever you love to do, and be happy, man. That's all I wish for people. It's like, I sound like a hippie now, but I'm just like,
yeah, you're in California.
yeah, man. But just really, like, dude, especially for veterans, dude, you've gone through so much. Like, don't make your life harder. Don't fight other people.
Yeah. Just
do your thing, man, and be happy and live a prosperous life. I only wish the best for people. So yeah, that's all I can ask.
100%. Well, we're coming up on the end of the time.
7 hours.
So it hasn't been that long, but
2 days later.
David, is there anything that I've missed or I haven't asked that you think is important to share with whoever's listening, whether it be a VA employee or a veteran or anybody?
Wow. No, man. I think we've said a lot in the episode, and if you need help, look for it. That's my thing. Don't be afraid. Don't let pride get in the way. I almost didn't find it in time, and it took somebody else to help me through it. And if you need that, go for it. But also, on a positive note, do what you love, have fun doing it, do your job, but have fun.
Do your stuff, have fun, and good things will happen.
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Well, David, appreciate you coming on board the battle. Appreciate the time you gave us, and we are out. Take care. Have a good one.
Number 5.
We gotta get them one way or the other. Machine gunner, fight bullets, fly day and night rain. Simplify till we die, another campaign. My desk is a rock where the drug lords cut up millions. My pen is a 7.62 round that'll cut them down in an instant. Point, click, pull the trigger to the tune of falling brass. Full benefits and a purple heart and a Russian-made bullet in my bag. Raining down lead, punching that clock. Get 'em, boys, I'm laying down cover. Machine gunner, fight bullets, fly day and night rain. Simplify, do or die, another campaign. Here we go, lock and load, 0331, lug 1,000 rounds, and I ain't bringing back one.